teachings, the good way of behavior. Those who seek the way of enlightenment must always bear in mind the necessity of constantly keeping their body, speech, and mind pure. To keep the body pure, one must not kill any living creature, one must not steal or commit adultery. To keep speech pure, one must not lie or abuse or deceive or indulge in idle talk. To keep the mind pure, one must remove all greed, anger, and false judgment. If the mind becomes impure, for sure, one's deeds will be impure. If the deeds are impure, there will be suffering. So, it is of the greatest importance that the mind and the body be kept pure. Once there was a rich widow who had a reputation for kindness, modesty, and courtesy. She had a housemaid who was wise and diligent. One day the maid thought, "My mistress has a very good reputation. I wonder whether she is good by nature or is good because of her surroundings. I will try her and find out." The following morning, the maid did not appear before her mistress until nearly noon. The mistress was vexed and scolded her impatiently. The maid replied, "If I am lazy for only a day or two, you ought not to become impatient." Then the mistress became angry. The next day, the maid got up late again. This made this mistress very angry, and she struck the maid with a stick. This incident became widely known, and the rich widow lost her good reputation. Many people are like this woman. While their surroundings are satisfactory, they are kind, modest, and quiet. But it is questionable if they will behave likewise when the conditions change and become unsatisfactory. It is only when a person maintains a pure and peaceful mind and continues to act with goodness, when unpleasant words enter his ears, when others show ill will toward him, or when he lacks sufficient food, clothes, and shelter, that we may call him good. Therefore, those who do good deeds for and maintain a peaceful mind only when their surroundings are satisfactory are not really good people. Only those who have received the Buddha's teachings and are training their minds and bodies by those teachings can be called truly good, modest, and peaceful people. As to the suitability of words to be used, there are five pairs of antonyms: words that are suitable to their occasions and those not so suitable to theirs, words that fit the facts and those that don't fit, words that sound pleasant and those that sound rude, words that are beneficial and those that are harmful, and words that are sympathetic and those that are hateful. Whatever words we utter should be chosen with care, for people will hear them and be influenced by them for good or ill. If our mind with filled with sympathy and compassion, they will be resistant to the evil words we hear. We must not let wild words pass our lips, lest they arouse feelings of anger and hatred. The words we speak should always be words of sympathy and wisdom. Suppose there is a man who wants to remove all the dirt from the ground. He uses a spade and a winnow and works perseveringly, scattering the dirt all about, but it is an impossible task. Like this foolish man, we cannot hope to eliminate all words. We must train our mind and fill our hearts with sympathy so that we will be undisturbed by the words spoken by others. One might try to paint a picture with watercolors on the blue sky, but it is impossible, and it is also impossible to dry up a great river by the heat of a torch made of hay, or to produce a crackling noise by rubbing together two pieces of well tanned leather. Like these examples, people should train their minds so that they would not be disturbed by whatever kinds of words they might hear. They should train their minds and keep them broad as the earth, unlimited as the sky, deep as a big river, and soft as well tanned leather. Even if your enemy catches and tortures you, if you feel resentment, you are not following the Buddha's teachings. Under every circumstance, you should learn to think. My mind is unshakable. Words of hatred and anger shall not pass my lips. I will surround my enemy with thoughts of sympathy and pity that flow out from a mind filled with compassion for all sentient life. There is a fable told of a man who found an ant hill which burned in the daytime and smoked at night. He went to a wise man and asked his advice as to what he should do about it. The wise man told him to dig into it with a sword. This the man did. He found in succession a gate bar, some bubbles of water, a pitchfork, a box, a tortoise, a butcher knife, a piece of meat, and finally a dragon which came out. The man reported to the wise man what he had found. The wise man explained the significance of it and said, "Throw away everything but the dragon, leave the dragon alone, and do not disturb him." This is a fable in which ant hill represents the human body. Burned in the daytime represents the fact that during the day people turn into acts and things they thought about the previous night. Smoked at night indicates that the fact that people during the night recall with pleasure or forget or regret the things they did the previous day. In the same fable, a man means a person who seeks enlightenment. A wise man means Buddha. A sword means pure wisdom. Dig into it refers to the effort he must make to gain enlightenment. Further in the fable, gate bar represents ignorance, bubbles are puffs of suffering and anger, pitchfork suggests hesitation and uneasiness, box suggests the storage of greed, anger, laziness, fickleness, repentance, and delusion. Tortoise means the body and the mind. Butcher knife means the synthesis of the five sensory desires, and a piece of meat means the resulting desire that causes a man to covet after satisfaction. These things are all harmful to man, and so Buddha said, "Throw away everything." Still further, dragon indicates a mind that has eliminated all worldly passions. If a man digs into the things about him with a sword of wisdom, he will finally come to his dragon. Leave the dragon alone and do not disturb him means to go after and dig up a mind free of worldly desires. Pindola, a disciple of Buddha, after gaining enlightenment, returned to his native place of Koshambi to repay the people there for a kindness they had shown him. In so doing, he prepared the field for the sowing of Buddha's seed. On the outskirts of Koshambi, there is a small park that runs along the banks of Ganges river, shaded by endless rows of coconut trees, and where a cool mind continually blows. One hot summer day, Pindola sat in meditation in the cool shade of a tree when King Udana came to this park with his consorts for recreation, and after music and pleasure, he took a nap in the shade of another tree. While their king was asleep, his wives and ladies in waiting took a walk and suddenly came upon Pindola sitting in meditation. They recognized him as a holy man and asked him to teach them, and they listened to his sermon. When the king awoke from his nap, he went in search of his ladies and found them surrounding this man and listening to his teachings. Being a jealous and lascivious mind, the king became angry and abused Pindola, saying, "It is inexcusable that you, a holy man, should be in the midst of women and enjoy idle talking with them. Pindola quietly closed his eyes and remained silent. Angry king drew his sword and threatened Pindola, but the holy man remained silent and was as firm as a rock. This made the king still more angry, so he broke open an ant hill and threw some of the ant filled dirt upon him. But still Pindola remained sitting in meditation, quietly enduring the insult and pain. Thereupon the king became ashamed of his ferocious conduct and begged Pindola's pardon. As a result of this incident, the Buddha's teaching found its way into the king's castle, and from there it spread all over the country. A few days later, King Udana visited Pindola in the forest retreat where he lived and asked him, "Honored teacher, how is it that the disciples of Buddha can keep their bodies and minds pure and untempted by lust, although they are mostly young men?" Pindola replied, "Noble Lord Buddha has taught us to respect all women. He has taught us to look upon all old women as our mothers, upon those of our own age as our sisters, and upon younger ones as our daughters. Because of this teaching, the disciples of Buddha are able to keep their bodies and minds pure and untempted by lust, although they are youthful. But, honored teacher, one may have impure thoughts of a woman the age of a mother, or a sister, or a daughter. How do the disciples of Buddha control their desires?" Noble Lord, the Blessed One taught us to think of our bodies as secreting impurities of all kinds, such as blood, pus, sweat, and oils. By thinking thus, we, although young, are able to keep our minds pure. Honored teacher, still pressed the king, "It may be easy for you to do this, for you have trained your mind and body and polished your wisdom. But it would be difficult for those who have not yet had such training. They may try to remember the impurities, but their eyes will follow beautiful forms. They may try to see the ugliness, but they will be tempted by the beautiful figures just the same. There must be some other reason that the young men among the Buddha's disciples are able to keep their action pure." "Noble Lord," replied Pindola, "the Blessed One teaches us to guard the doors of the five senses. When we see beautiful figures and colors with our eyes, when we hear pleasant sounds with our ears, when we smell fragrance with our nose, or when we taste sweet things with our tongue, or touch soft things with our hands, we are not to become attached to these attractive things. Neither are we to be repulsed by unattractive things. We are taught to carefully guard the doors of these five senses. It is by this teaching of the Blessed One that even young disciples are able to keep their minds and bodies pure. The teaching of Buddha is truly marvelous. From my own experience, I know that if I confront anything beautiful or pleasing without being on my guard, I am disturbed by the sense impressions. It is of vital importance that we be on guard at the doors of the five senses at all times to keep our deeds pure. Whenever a person expresses the thought of his mind in action, there is always a reaction that follows. If one abuses you, there is a temptation to answer back or to be revenged. One should be on guard against this natural reaction. It is like spitting against the wind, it harms no one but oneself. It is like sweeping dust against the mind, it doesn't get rid of the dust but defiles oneself. Misfortune always dogs and the steps of one who gives way to the desire for revenge. It is a very good deed to cast away greed and to cherish a mind of charity. It is still better to keep one's mind intent on respecting the noble path. One should get rid of a selfish mind and replace it with a mind that is earnest to help others. An act to make another happy inspires the other to make still another happy, and so happiness is born from such an act. Thousands of candles can be lighted from a single candle, and the life of the candle will be will not be shortened. Happiness never decreases by being shared. Those who seek enlightenment must be careful of their each step. No matter how high one's aspiration may be, it must be attained step by step. The steps of the path to enlightenment must be taken in our daily life. At the very beginning of the path to enlightenment, there are 20 difficulties for us to overcome in this world, and they are: it is hard for a poor man to be generous, it is hard for a proud man to learn the way of enlightenment, it is hard to seek enlightenment at the cost of self sacrifice, it is hard to be born while Buddha is in the world. It is hard to hear the teaching of Buddha. It is hard to keep the mind pure against the instincts of the body. It is hard not to desire things that are beautiful and attractive. It is hard for a strong man not to use his strength to satisfy his desires. It is hard not to get angry when one is insulted. It is hard to remain innocent when tempted by sudden circumstances. It is hard to apply oneself to study widely and thoroughly. It is hard not to despise a beginner. It is hard to keep oneself humble. It is hard to find good friends. It is hard to endure the discipline that leads to enlightenment. It is hard not to be disturbed by external conditions and circumstances. It is hard to teach others by knowing their abilities. It is hard to maintain a peaceful mind. It is hard not to argue about right and wrong. It is hard to find and learn a good method. Good man and bad man differ from each other in their natures. Bad men do not recognize a sinful act as sinful if its sinfulness is brought to their attention. They do not cease doing it and do not like to have anyone inform them of their sinful acts. Wise men are sensitive to right and wrong. They cease doing anything as soon as they see that it is wrong. They are grateful to anyone who calls their attention to such wrong acts. Thus, good men and bad men differ radically. Bad men never appreciate kindness shown them, but wise men appreciate and are grateful. Wise men try to express their appreciation and gratitude by some return of kindness, not only to their benefactor but to everyone else. Hari Om Tat Sat.